All right, so back to what I was saying. Again, my name is Taylor Ward, and we are going to be talking about when curriculum ignores reality, a teacher's career study on misalignment and student experience. All right, so I wanted to start you all by saying that there was a specific moment that led me to why my research looks the way it does. So I remember being in the classroom doing everything I was supposed to do. The students, I mean, for what it was worth, they were able to go through with the lesson. The lessons were put on the board. The standards were there, but the problem was the students were disconnected from the reality of what we were teaching. We were giving them information. We asked them to regurgitate it back, but then when it came down to actually assessing them, they had no clue what we were talking about. All right. So students were physically present. That's what we ended up paying attention to. But the reality was they weren't always mentally or emotionally there. And I couldn't ignore that, more specifically because I was one of those students who had to deal with work, but also had life going on in the background. All right. So here is the problem that we run into in the classroom. The way curriculum is designed right now, the way people or district leaders are pushing curriculum, they assume that there is stability already in the classroom. They assume that there is stability even in how the students interact with the material that they have. The next thing is that students experience complexities. One student may come from a two-parent household while everything is cool versus another student, they're trying to figure out whose house they're going to stay at for the day. All right. And then we have the biggest tension in the fact that the teachers are left with the responsibility of navigating that gap. And then, more importantly, a lot of the responsibility and the consequence falls on the teachers when we're dealing with that. All right. So, from that, that's when I started to ask myself a question, the bigger question, the one that kind of solidifies where this is going. How does my lived experience as a student and a teacher reveal misalignments between students' lived realities and traditional curriculum, and how can this inform more responsive curriculum design? All right. So, with that in mind, the way careers works, it is a self-study. This is actually one that I genuinely enjoyed because it required you to go back into your life and figure out what connections you can come from that and then come up with a theory based off of that. So, the career method is broken up into four different ways. We have regressive, progressive, analytical, and synthetic. With the regressive, we are focusing on my time as a high school student. I am a product of divorce. I started here at Reed High School in the midst of my parents getting a divorce. That was a very tumultuous experience that set a big precedence for a lot of the things that I experienced throughout my time. Along with that, my parents are also educators as well. So to deal with my educator parents dealing with that tension and that gap, but then also going home and kind of receiving some of the consequences of those gaps, it's a tough time. But then too, it reveals something that just as much as the students suffer, the teachers suffer too. So once we get to looking back through what I went through, we also want to look at progressive, what it could look like if we were to take curriculum and reimagine it in a way that more so accounts for the reality of what we actually are experiencing. Everything asks us to differentiate but the curriculum. So that's a problem with that. All right. So then we come up with our next thing. We have analytical. The tensions, they exist. The problem is the fact that we've known that the tensions have existed and they have existed for this long. Now it's time to do something different. We can't be what we're, it's too much confusion. So that is where we finish it up with the synthetical. This is what this all means. All right. So that is how this was broken up. We took a lot of time looking at the regressive and we were able to see that there were some very consistent themes on what was going on. All right. So the first one, curriculum assumes consistency. Like I said, they assume that while in the background we have differentiation, they assume that I'm supposed to be able to take a topic, a product, give it to our students, and the students are supposed to be able to take within their capacity this information and produce a bigger thought. That is the expectation. All right. But the problem is we're expecting very linear products from a very inconsistent way of student experiences. All right. The students have a bunch of stuff going on. We have kids who are working, kids taking care of parents, kids taking care of their siblings. There are a whole bunch of different things, yet they are required to stop their world and show up in this classroom and accommodate for this very rigid curriculum structure. All right. So then the last thing, like we said, teachers are left with the burden to figure out how to deal with the consistencies of our students. We have class sizes of 70. So imagine taking 70 kids and trying to individually figure out how to support that student. That is a very unrealistic reality that burns everybody out. And at the end of the day, the people who are the priority are the ones who suffer the most, students. All right. So, boom. All right. So, this is what, once we kind of paid attention to what was happening, this is what the data kind of showed. Data demands increase at all times. So, unfortunately, I saw the backhands of what those data conversations look like. We see that numbers may not be the best, so the expectation is we're going to increase whatever we're doing. Instead of trying to figure out if that actually works, no, we're going to say that if we do more of it, then it'll finally be successful. We'll just kind of gamble with it, basically. All right. Then the next thing is instructional time decreases. The more they demand data stuff from us, the less we actually have the opportunity to go in and teach our students. At the end of the day, we are the experts. We know our individual needs of our students. So just as much as we're giving them information, they're giving it back to us. Sometimes even that information doesn't necessarily address what we know about our students. And so this instructional time being decreased so much, the students are going to suffer, and the teachers, we're not going to have that many good ones left. All right. So at the end of the day, like I said, performance is impacted. Teachers shut down, students shut down. We have a produce more mindset. The more the students don't do, I'm going to give you more, and then we get frustrated on that too. It's a ripple effect. It's a cycle. Everybody's struggling, stressed out. All right. So at the end of the day, if we know that this is our entire experience, I've been teaching for 6 years and I ain't never met anything different from that. Okay, we're going to have to do, insanity is to keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. We're going to have to try something different. All right. So with that in mind, this is what we have to try. Try something that's a little bit more relevant. Try something that's a little bit more engaging. Relevance equals engagement. Relationships equal trust. And then the last one is, oh Lord, these typos. Flexibility equals access. So I was very intentional on the pictures that I chose. I don't want this to be seen as one of those like arbitrary theory type of projects. I want you all to understand that this stuff can work, and it's not as serious and as intense as people think that it has to be in order to accomplish it. At the end of the day, people in general, we want to find a way to connect it. I'm confident that if this was something related to fibromyalgia and plaque, whatever, y'all gonna disconnect. That's the only thing I think about. All right, something about that fibromyalgia, I don't know. All right, you said what? MLK, he fought for the people. Or like what the kids say? What the kids said? MLK died for the sins. I said, Lord Jesus. Yes, that's what they said. Martin Luther King died for our sins. That's what they said. Yes, but they knew he died for something. That's the context, right? So even within that, I'm glad you said that. Even within that, okay, cool. They knew some information, right? However, the only one I know that we celebrate on Easter, Jesus Christo, the man above. So I'm like, I don't know what Martin Luther King got to do with anything. So with that in mind, what I have noticed from the students, there is a trend. Y'all know that you the baby. Y'all done heard that you the baby. All right, so the way my English brain went crazy because I'm like, y'all are using context clues in order to get this. That's the only way this is going to make sense. You're going to have to think critically and use context clues to do that. All right. So instead of us finding F. Scott Fitzgerald from 1950 and trying to get them to understand critical thinking and making connections, what better way than to take something as simple as you the baby or you the birthday and find ways to make it relevant for them. The material is still the same. It's just packaged in a different way. It's relevant. So as a result of it, we have engagement. So one of our biggest struggles is our students, they don't talk, they don't interact. That's just because we package it weird for them. They can do it. We just have to be a little bit more strategic, and it does not take that much. Where data requires us to gamble and try to figure it out when all you got to do is pay attention to the kids. They'll tell you exactly what they can do and what they can't do and how they respond. So the more we pay attention to the students, that's when we create the flexibility. The flexibility creates access. So even those students who genuinely don't perform and typically don't perform, they feel a little bit more comfortable to ask questions, to engage, to try. And we award trying versus not doing anything at all. All right. So with that in mind, what does this mean for education as a whole? We got to do some trauma-informed design. We're not saying we need to take a story like Long Way Down and have everybody reminisce on life post grief. We're not asking for that, but what we are saying is, let's consider the fact that the kids just got back from a break. You're asking them to take the EOC. Then you're asking them to take the MAP test. Then you're asking them to take this, but then you're saying the data is saying that the kids are not performing. Could it just simply be that they're tired? Could it just simply be that aside from what they experience here, they have lives outside? Just as we get frustrated as teachers when we can't focus on life because we're dealing with that, it's the same thing. So the fact that we are requiring the students to make the disconnect for us, but we can't create that disconnect for the kids, that's not fair. So there needs to be some trauma-informed design going on. We need flexible structures. The way the world works today, there's too much flexibility for education to be as rigid as it is. And I believe that that's the majority of the reason why we can't move forward. And so the fact that the entire world is evolving, yet the one thing that controls how the world revolves stays the same, then of course we're going to keep, it's by design. That's a whole deeper conversation, but something's going to have to give. All right. So with that in mind, we are going to have to rethink about accountability. I know you may not like the kid, but it's your job, period, point blank. So now we need to be a little bit more intentional. Now that we know that these are kids and we know that they have life, then we're going to have to take some accountability, and we're going to have to know that we got to learn how to interact with people. And when we learn how to interact with people, then all the other stuff will make more sense. And so instead of us trying to find, I got to use fibromyalgia. That's the only thing. If we're trying to find ways to teach fibromyalgia, I could teach it by giving you some definitions and video, or I can give you a connection, give you a story, a case study, something like that to get the context. I'm hoping that that was 10 minutes. But at the end of the day, what I can say about this presentation is this says a lot, but it doesn't say enough. There's so much more that we can talk about with education. This education as a job is not meaningless, but it feels meaningless because the system designs it to crush us. And so if we could find a way to have an even platform to where the students who are usually underprivileged actually have a fighting chance, and the teachers to support them actually have a fighting chance, I believe that in the same way that some of these counties and some of these schools are doing okay, we could be able to do the same thing. Make sense? All right. So, question, what resonated with you all? Where do you see this in your context as a coach, math, science, ELA, social studies?
Well, I'm going to say I've been in education 17 years. I will say that education is a lot different when I started teaching than it was when I was actually a student. I do think that we have, I'll say this to anybody, I do think that we overtest the kids extremely. And I don't think that tests necessarily measure what the students actually know. It not only creates burnout for the students, it also creates burnout for the teachers. Because I do not remember when I was in school as a student here at Redan High School, I do not remember testing being this.
Right. Like, it was never like this.
It was never like this. Like, I don't remember that. Like, I can never say that I remember my teachers being stressed out. Like, oh my God, y'all got this EOC test that you got to take. Like, the graduation test wasn't even this stressful. Like, I don't even remember the graduation test being this stressful. But I think it's that way because, and it's just my honest opinion, I think it's a lot of people that are in a lot of positions that have never been educators. And I think they think that, the more stuff we throw on them, the better it's going to be, when it should really be the reverse. Like, y'all are getting paid to be in these positions. Some of this that y'all should take on. Some of the stuff that y'all should take on and let us actually teach the curriculum. Like, I do believe in planning, I do believe in looking at your data, but I do think that a lot of this stuff that we do is pointless, especially if we're doing it just to
tick a box.
Like, I'm not even gonna lie, I do think it is. Of course, in my own context, math doesn't change. I hate having a conversation with parents about new math because, baby, nothing is new about 2 + 2 being 4. Nothing is new about 3 × 3 being 9. Nothing has never been known about.
You're not wrong. You're so not wrong.
Back to that conversation that you said, it is definitely packaged different. conversation with somebody because they were asking me to help their child with math, and they were like, it's like this big old thing in the way they do it. And I said, yeah, but the old way still works. So if I know that my students are not getting this, okay, well, let me show it to you in a way that's different to the way that you understand it. I don't care how you got from A to B, as long as you get there. I'm not that person.
The curriculum doesn't give you that flexibility.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I don't care though.
Yeah.
I don't care how you got from A to B. And to be honest, no, the curriculum doesn't, but I feel like we should put our own flexibility in there because at the end of the day, like you said, at the end of the day, if we're trying to service students, if that's what we're trying to do, I don't care if I showed you how to add using popsicle sticks or beans.
You did it.
You did it. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
I don't care if I taught you how to carry the one or if I taught you how to do grouping. Baby, it is 12 plus 13 still 25. Yes.
So it's almost like, in a way, curriculum kind of contradicts itself. Yeah. It pushes critical thinking, but then also punishes it at the same token.
And everybody doesn't think the same way, too. And you have to realize that in the flexibility of the students, everybody doesn't think the same way. So you can't expect the students to think the way that you think, but we can't expect that. I mean, they also can't expect us to think the way that they think. Mm-hmm. Because, of course, we grew up in different times. So in a different era, different generations, we think differently.
Right.
So, I mean, that's why I'm at.
Yes, ma'am.